This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in California. I am here with World Community Network. Since 2022, this groundbreaking initiative aims to create an all-inclusive online world community by weaving together cutting-edge technology, inspiring content, and community-building initiatives. I am joined here with the chairman and CEO, Brent. Thanks for joining us here today, sir.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to be here with you.
I'm going to start off a little bit about yourself. You were formally educated with 12 active certifications from multiple schools, such as University of California, Oxford, Cambridge. Your studies have led you to Wharton, Stanford, Dartmouth, Cornell, Yale, Princeton, most recently Harvard University. You yourself are an entrepreneur. You're a producer, executive producer, and award-winning author on subjects of knowledge management, psychology, and in universal wisdom. Share with me, first of all, how this passion really for sharing knowledge began for you.
Yeah, great question, Gary. How did it share? I don't know. I guess I've always been interested in sharing my knowledge and experience with other people. I actually am a former psychotherapist in a previous lifetime, so I have a desire to help people. And what we're doing with the World Community Network is really the ultimate embodiment of my long-term desire and activities are related to sharing whatever it is that I can share to be helpful to anybody else.
That's what we're going to do today. We're going to share some of that knowledge, tell folks what we're doing out here. Your organization believes we are at a turning point in history where the heart of humanity is calling for a smooth transition to a decentralized and more equitable financial system. So let's first explain to the viewers out there, what is a centralized system? Kind of explain that for them.
Sure. Okay. So the world that we live in today is, first of all, it's completely interconnected. That's a fact that sometimes we forget about, but we're completely interconnected now. It wasn't always the case, but in the 21st century and beyond, everything is completely interconnected. So today what we have is mostly this concept of everything being centralized. So centralized means all of the structure and process is really centered in a single area. So an example of a company, of a for-profit company, it's a centralized organization and it's run from the top. And governments are also centralized organizations. We have businesses that are centralized. Well, our banking system is also a centralized banking system. Now, we don't have a global centralized banking system yet, but we have many different kind of banking systems. And so, for example, each country typically has their own banking system, and it's very much centralized. So the movement afoot over the last several years is, people have probably heard about things like blockchain and Bitcoin, and what this really is this represents a decentralized system, a system where the system is not controlled by any one particular person or organization. So that's what it means. That's what we mean when we say a decentralized system.
Interesting. I mean, your organization hopes to play a crucial role in ensuring a smooth transition to this new decentralized financial system. So we're talking decentralized means, what does that look like for the common person out there? That's hard for us to wrap our head around a little bit.
Sure. And it's another great question, Gary. Thank you so much for that, because if you're not involved in this on a day-to-day basis, like myself and many other people, it can be difficult to understand what people are talking about. But decentralized means basically I can send money. And when we're talking about a decentralized financial system, it means that I can send money from me to you. I can do that directly without having to go through a third party, a third party like a bank. Or some kind of other financial institution. So when most people have heard about Bitcoin, so Bitcoin is an example of a decentralized digital currency, which people can go and purchase this Bitcoin, and it doesn't go through a bank, it doesn't go through a government, and so it represents, I believe, a very early and crude example, but a very good example of a digital currency system that is decentralized. So that's kind of how I would suggest people look at it.
Explain that very well. And you're eliminating that overbearing middleman, if you will. And that makes sense. I mean, I read just a few days ago that basically these banks are holding on to your money before they send it off to you because, quite honestly, they're earning an interest off of your money, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Really,
Yes.
you are creating a blueprint for global harmony and abundance. Is the starting point of this global community really all start online? And why is that important?
Yes. So, as you mentioned, what we're doing is we're creating a blueprint for a new world. And it's such a big thing that sometimes it may take a while for that to sink in, what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a new world. We're doing this by creating a blueprint first. Now, we're starting online in cyberspace. And the way I explain this is that just like we can create any reality on television or in the movies, we can create any reality in cyberspace. Now, generally, we don't think about cyberspace like that. We just think about cyberspace being emails and going to websites and streaming some videos. But cyberspace is actually it's a form of media, just like when you're watching like I said, a TV show or a movie. So that's what we're doing. We're starting in cyberspace where anything and everything is possible. That's really important concept. Everything's possible without exception. So that's why we're starting in cyberspace to create a new world that is fair and harmonious and truly abundant. That's what we're up to.
Let's face it, we spent a good amount of our time in cyberspace already, so that's going to be an easy transition, I think. I mean, this is a multi-phased approach that includes inspiring videos, a good news channel. Will this be an online communications hub, really with many community building programs all within it? Is that what you're envisioning?
Absolutely. And maybe what I could do is I could step through at a high level what those 5 stages are, because when we're talking about creating a new world, for example, I mean, that's such a big undertaking. You can't just do that, right? You have to have a plan. So what we have is our plan, as outlined on our website, is 5 phases. It's a 5-phase operating model, as you mentioned. And the first phase is to create an online communications hub or a communications center. Because we are going to be sharing videos and other forms of media, this is called a social media platform. So we're creating a social media platform, also known as a social networking system, because we have capabilities allowing people and encouraging people to connect and interact with one another. So that's the first step, is to build this system so that when we're all coming together, we actually have a system that we can use ourselves, and we're not relying on other platforms that may, especially centralized platforms that may want to exercise some amount of control. So that's the first phase. I'm sorry.
That's the first phase, but like you say, there's phases all along the way. I mean, there's no question we have wonderful cutting edge technology today. But are these advancements being used for the greater good? That's really the question. And is this where the real power of this technology you think should be used?
Absolutely. I think that we have all sorts of things that are happening in the world today. We have miracle after miracle happening, breakthrough after breakthrough in so many different fields of endeavor. And many people have no idea about what these breakthroughs are. Technology and science plays a very, very key role. There's so many different advancements in science and technology. So one of the things that we believe is when people become aware, it's not this that we believe this, but one of the things that we see and notice and observe in other people is that when they actually are exposed to hearing about all of these amazing breakthroughs, they get very excited about the future as opposed to being afraid of it. And that is therefore, it's how we use the technology that makes a difference. So what we're doing is deliberately focusing on the positive use of technology and deliberately and intentionally focusing on the future that we wish to create. Not all the problems in the world that need to be solved. Yes, we're going to deal with those, but our primary focus and an enduring focus is going to be to intentionally and deliberately focus on what we want, what we envision. So the videos, therefore, in the second phase, are going to play a key role in allowing people to see the future, not just to hear some fancy words about how life is going to be so great, but to actually see it. And so that's the second phase, and that's another positive use of technology, you could say.
That's exciting to be able to experience something like that, is what you're saying. I mean, many would say out there that this is a lofty goal. I mean, digital currency, universal basic income, shared prosperity is the hope that when people lead, leaders will follow. I mean, is this an idea you think whose time has come?
Wow. Yes, absolutely. Yes, and yes. I believe that this is an idea whose time has come. And it is a very powerful, innovative, creative idea. Now, there are some people, many people, maybe even most people, would think that this kind of idea is so big and so crazy that I must be crazy, or that we must be crazy. All the people that are supporting us and interested in making this happen. But I just remind everyone that whatever may seem crazy, like in Star Trek or Star Wars or any of these other science fiction kind of movies or TV shows in the past, have actually been harbingers of examples of technology that actually becomes real, and situations that become real. So that's, in fact, exactly what we're trying to do, because cyberspace is the new medium.
And when we grew up, we watched this stuff on TV. Now we're seeing it every day. Yet the youth of today, they're almost numbed by it. They don't understand how powerful this stuff that's going on. I mean, vital importance for this to succeed is creating a community really of values in order to co-create really a new world. I mean, this is not fighting back against what is existing, but instead creating a whole new model, would you say?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Buckminster Fuller had this great saying, is that if you're trying to create a new reality, you don't fight against the current reality. You simply focus on creating a new reality that makes the old one obsolete. And that is exactly what we're doing with the World Community Network. We're focusing on what we want. People say to me all the time, well, what about this and what about that and what about this person, about this nation or whoever? They're going to be against this, or they're not going to like it, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because what we're doing is focusing on what we want. And when I say we, I'm talking about the ultimate we, like we, the people of the world. That's what the World Community Network is about. That's why we call it the World Community Network. This is a community of every single person in the world without exception. It doesn't matter what your race or religion or creed or place in the world or place in society or economic status or sexual orientation or any other concept that's man-made. It doesn't matter. Everybody's included. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we're very much using the Buckminster Fuller concept of focusing on what we want to build. And then we believe very strongly that as we do this, it will, and we're already noticing it, is that it will attract people and people want to become a part of it. And that's the whole principle of what Buckminster Fuller said in his quote.
I can definitely see how the tools you're going to use to keep people laser focused. We're so easy to be distracted or think we're fighting against something instead of just staying focused on what you're doing. Will this technology enable individuals to collaborate seamlessly towards common goals by using web, mobile apps, as well as, like you say, even social networking?
Yes, that's exactly what we're creating. So we've created a new social media platform, which includes many of the capabilities that you find on other social networking systems. So it's, some people might say, it's a kind of a combination between Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, because we actually we believe that we're better than any of those other platforms, because we have some very interesting. Very different ideas about what a community is and how it should be controlled, and that is, it should be controlled by the people. That's why the whole decentralized concept is really important. So yes, we're going to be using our communication platform that will not just be on the website on a desktop, but as you pointed out, it'll also be available on a mobile app. We've built the first version of our mobile app already, and we need to update it for the next upcoming version of the website as well. But yes, any technology that is on the earth today that can help build a better world is what we're doing. And artificial intelligence is actually a very, very important component of what we're doing. There's a lot of fear and very valid concerns about AI. which we also aim to address.
Yep, I mean, that's exciting. Seeing all these technologies come together really for the greater good. I mean, phase one is technology. I'd say most can see how that can happen because we're so used to technology. But to truly succeed in this mission is by extending it into the physical world. What does this look like in terms of services, products in the physical world? And are these 2 or 5 phases going to be developed kind of in parallel?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're focusing on the online portion at first. And the reason why is because it's easier, right? We can create any reality in cyberspace. So we're going to be only focusing on the online portion. Now, however, anybody that participates in an online community or online social network is a person that is rooted in the physical world. So some people would say, well, just using these systems is already bringing it into the physical 3D world. But I think what you're asking is, how does it, once we establish this very large, let's say hundreds of millions of people or billions of people online, all coming together in a unified way, how does that actually extend into the physical world? Well, one example, there's many, many examples. Just any product or service you can imagine, that is included in it. But one of the things that I point out is, and use it as an example, is crowdfunding physical property together. And this is actually a concept that was promoted or is being promoted by Dr. Balaji Srinivasan, who is the author of a book called The Network State. And this book, he talks about very, very similar concepts, is basically creating an online community. His idea is to create very small niche communities, which then extend into the physical world. So the example he always uses is like the Keto Society. If you have an online community of people who are all interested in the keto diet, for example, well, they come together, they want to share recipes, they want to tell other people about, restaurants or the health benefits or answer questions. But then if you have a large enough people in a certain area, let's say here in LA, let's say there's, 100,000 people that are interested in keto, they could actually say, hey, let's just create our own restaurant. There's no keto restaurants, or the ones that do exist are really not very good. Let's get together. I'll put in $100, or I'll put in, 1,000 or whatever, and let's go crowdfund some physical property together, and then have a restaurant. And that's a really good example of how the online community can extend into the physical world.
Those are great examples. I mean, the crowdfunding example, a transaction that takes place online, yet it's very tangible. We're talking about land. I mean, this game of life will no longer be a game of Monopoly, where someone starts owning all the houses and hotels and the remaining players have no hope of ever catching up. Is the timing right? And is the game no longer fun for many or most people?
Yeah, it's really, I love the idea, the metaphor, the analogy, the example of the board game of Monopoly, because it's true. If you've played it, and fortunately, most people around the world, many people around the world, not just here in the US, have played it. And I think it's really important, because what happens is, as anyone who has played it knows, there comes a point where somebody does start getting all the houses and hotels. And they're having a great time. They just keep getting more and more money and more houses. And yeah, they're just having a great time. But what about everybody else? I know when I was a child, when it reached that point in the game, we would just take the board and flip it up and all the pieces would go everywhere. And we just start over with a new game. But we don't want that. We do not want to have a situation where humanity throws its hands up and we have chaos all over the world. We are, I believe, reaching a point in our history, in humanity's history, where we've got this enormous difference between the wealth of people all around the world. One example, just a horrifying example, is 1/3 of the people in the world don't even have clean water. Right now, as we speak, 1/3 of the people don't have clean water. That's just shocking. So yes, I believe that this is where we're at right now in humanity. It's like this giant game of Monopoly. And the question is, how are we going to start a new game? Well, our answer to that question is, we're starting a world community initiative. That's why we call it the World Community Network. It's not a kind of like idea of a single company coming along and making all these magical things happening. We're going to help facilitate that, but there are many people and organizations and institutions all over the world doing incredible things. And so what we want to do is be an enabler to help facilitate all of us coming together to create what we want. And that's a peaceful world, a world where we don't have to worry about, what's going to happen to our children. We don't have to worry about what's going to happen to ourselves or what's going to happen tomorrow with all of the crazy things that are happening, right? This is the time when the people of the world come together and say, enough is enough, in a peaceful, calm voice, though, not like, in any kind of revolutionary way, but in an evolutionary way. In a very peaceful way, we come together to literally help create a new world. So that's the juncture that we're at right now. And that's the intention and the purpose of the World Community Network, which is to bring us all together and then help perform collective actions together, to come together, to recognize how large we are and how we all want the same thing, but then be able to exercise our collective power through collective action. So all of this technology will also play a key role in that as well.
I'm so glad you touched on the analogy of Monopoly. I love that game. I play with my kids all the time, but you're absolutely right. You're all playing, it's a good time, but then one person starts taking over the board and they're so caught up in their moment that they're not looking up and realize everybody's not having a good time now. And, there's some people here that all started having a good time, but we're not now. And then I see my kids, they start trying to help each other by lending people money. Yet that's kind of what you're talking about. Everybody spreading that out and being able to enjoy the game once again. Brent, you are asking us to imagine a world where universal human rights are respected, diversity is celebrated, and the power of cutting-edge technologies are harnessed really for the greater good. I mean, a world where every human being has the opportunity to thrive, simply transcending the boundaries that now divide all of us. This has to be really rewarding work for you and your team. Tell me.
It sure is. I just see some things anyway, I see them very clearly. One thing I see very clearly is that global problems require global solutions. And so we all need to come together. We can't be successful solving our problems and creating a better world for everyone if we don't include everyone right from the start. So this is very deliberately and intentionally an all-inclusive effort. This is why I mentioned before how everybody's included. And it's really important, and it's very rewarding, especially when people all around the world, we have some 65 people on 6 continents already, and we haven't even launched. We built the social media platform. It's in a special development environment. It's undergoing beta testing and further development. If you go to the public website, you won't see any of that just yet. But we have this amazing team, and it's really very gratifying to uphold this vision and to see a lot of other people from very diverse backgrounds all around the world, being very, very excited about it. And if I could just briefly mention, Gary, because it's relevant to what we're talking about here, is that I started the very first intentionally global online community back in 1994, almost 30 years ago. It was called The Park. And I ran the park for about 7 years. We got caught up in the .com craze. We couldn't get the necessary funding to build a financially sustainable business, so we had to close our doors. But by the time we closed, we had 700,000 people from around the world, more than 190 countries. And so and the idea that I had back almost 30 years ago was to do exactly what we're talking about right now. So I was way ahead of my time, and I'm saying that because not because I'm bragging, but only because to recognize that this idea is not just some new idea that I have, right? This is rooted in 30 years of experience, and then after closing, a whole lot more experience, and most importantly, evaluation of the existing social media platforms and social networking platforms to identify what all the problems and challenges are, and therefore what the opportunities are. And that's why we've got what we've got with World Community Network. It's basically addressing all of the issues that we see in many of the other social networking platforms, especially with the out of control AI algorithms that are being used. That is a very important feature, that we're doing something very unique and creative and different than any other social media or social networking platforms out there today.
This idea began 3 decades ago, yet we now have the technology to really catapult this and make it happen. I mean, I can see that. I was excited to get this message out to my viewers, really at the ground floor level as it's happening. I think we're going to look back and be amazed when you say, remember when we had 65 people across multiple continents, and now look where we are. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. First of all, on the website, you can learn more about the plan and values that this initiative is creating. I mean, you can see the upcoming services and videos that will really illuminate a positive future. The mission really is not only for today, but really minds coming together for our children's future. Once again, that's the World Community Network. Are you ready to be part of a more compassionate, sustainable, and just world for everyone? This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.